It's called Rivers of Blood, and it explores. So I traveled extensively in Bangladesh in 2008, and exploring my roots, trying to find my roots, which lie in Bangladesh. My family was displaced by the partition in 1947. And I had always wanted to return to Bangladesh, but I only did that when I was 40 years old in 2008. And my mother traveled with me a part of the time, and that was a completely different experience to actually travel with her, because she had real memories of her time there. So I used, to a very large extent, embroidery in this project, which now I was doing myself. I discovered in Bangladesh the Nokshi Katha, which is a form of quilting. It's a tradition of quilting, and you use the run stitch to quilt. And but I discovered that unlike Katha that exists in West Bengal, and it was not a purely decorative art form. It was actually a narrative art form where the Katha became the narrative field, and artists and women within the domestic sphere were using the Katha to tell their stories, and so these became important objects of social and cultural documentation. And this particular text is an excerpt from a poem by a Bengali poet about the Katha. And so I maintained a diary all through my travels in Bangladesh, and that diary became the basis of this project. It was like a visual rendering of the diary. That's what I intended it to be. And I tried to simulate the experience of actually traveling and writing the diary. What you see there is a detail from the embroidery that I did, and an excerpt from the diary. So this is the project as it got installed in the gallery. And I'm just going to quickly run through this because I believe we're running out of time. So these are the installation views that I'm taking you through very quickly, and then I will come to the individual works. And so one of the things I do as a printmaker, I tend to make, instead of sketches that a lot of artists do, I tend to make small prints, so which sort of become the starting point for my work. And so I was at first simulating the Nokshi Katha in the etching or other print mediums, and but later I took to actually embroidering. So this is a work called Cox's Bazaar, the English East-West Fish Bar, Kolkata, Dhaka, and it's a menu book for a multi-cuisine fish restaurant that exists in Kolkata and Dhaka, hypothetically. That's a closer view. So I installed a set of 4 diptychs, which I installed on a tablecloth, again pieced to diptychs. So there were starters and there was very layered work with fish, images of fish from East Bengal and West Bengal, and recipes from East Bengal, West Bengal, and colonial fish recipes. So I was looking at the English as well as the Bengali obsession with fish. And so these are the main course from the Bay of Bengal, and from the rivers, the Ganga and the Padma, and the Hooghly and the Kornofuli. And that's the back of the diptych. And this is an installation work that was created in the gallery space. So Chemould has this beautiful wall, which they don't allow you to change in any way. So I actually decided to work with it, and it prompted this work called The Last Bell Call. And this work was prompted by my visit to my father's school in Dhaka, which was a Jesuit missionary school. his obsession with football, and so these are all excerpts from the diary that were actually inscribed on the walls in the gallery, which you could read as you went along. And my father later joined the Indian Army and went back to fight the war in 71, and I was, it made me wonder what might have gone through the minds of the many soldiers who went back to fight the war, who actually belonged in Bangladesh and had been displaced by the partition, but went back as a call of duty. And that's the army hold-all that belonged to my father that I used. And an old cross-stitch tablecloth on which I mapped the route that the Indian Army took into Bangladesh in 1971. And so I mapped it not just like a map for strategies of war, but also for strategies on a football field. And I also used the cross-stitch as like a very colonial introduction, and on it I did the indigenous Nokshi Katha, which changed its character because you had to follow the grid of the cross-stitch and looked different. So again, material and medium become very significant. This was a set of 2 cabinets which again address the nuptials and the baggage that you tend to carry regardless of the fact that you become displaced. The baggage that you carry when you form liaisons. This was the female cabinet. And this is a found Nokshi Katha. It was made by my mother when she was young. And So these are all the things inside it. And this is a book again, a set of 6 panels. Called Burma to Benapole. It maps the journey of my mother's family from Burma to Benapole. They were twice displaced, once from Burma during the Second World War and once in 1947 from Bangladesh. So Benapole is where you cross the border to Kolkata from Bangladesh. And it's 6 panels with, again, embroidery and print and a lot of use of textiles like Dhakai muslin and Jamdani, which are very significant to the politics of colonization. And that's it, yeah.
Thank you, Paula. Can I invite all the other artists back up onto the platform so that if there are any questions that people want to address jointly, or to start with to Paula, we could do that very quickly. I actually wanted to ask you, Paula, in terms of your work, where do you install them? Do you install them in site-specific places, your work? Do you install them in galleries or site-specific places? How do you pick the venue where you want to show your work?
If I'm given the luxury of site-specific, work where I can actually choose the space, I'm very happy to do it. It's not often that artists get the luxury to do that. But as and when I'm able to, I do. The first work in the Short Street project was actually made in a site-specific situation where the gentleman who lived in the house opposite us, who had a similar residence, was displaced by a developer and then relocated to a suburban location and took both the movables and some of the immovables like the Burma teak floor and so on and built a new house there. And he gave us the chance to actually do a workshop at his house, and the first work in the Short Street project was installed in his study, which was then under construction, with the Burma teak floor and the windows from the place that he had been in. But often enough, most of the time I'm showing in galleries, and but then also, I am a little particular about where I would like to show. Not every space works for me. I mean, the gallery space has to work for me, especially if I'm installing a major work or, like a whole project. The space is important. So the Short Street project, the nuptial chamber part of it was shown at